Mike has some things to share with us as he usually does each month. And with that, I will turn it over to Mike.
Thank you, I wasn't ready.
Good morning, everyone. Mike Ferruggia. I am the partner in charge of the real estate division at the law firm of Bruno Gerbino. I am also your friendly neighborhood realtor advocate, whether you like it or not.
Spider-Man? Your friendly Spider-Man?
I've decided to rebrand my presentation to the good, the bad, and the politically ugly. So I'm going to lead with the good. We do have some good news for those of us that do practice within the boroughs. Mayor Eric Adams did announce, put out a press release this past week, that one of his pet projects for this forthcoming year is to revamp the New York City zoning code to make it a little bit more business friendly within the boroughs. He specifically wants to remove some archaic zoning restrictions that hinder business growth. So we're looking forward to that. We'll see if he actually follows through with it, but we'll keep an eye on that. The bad. Listen, you can't open up a trade paper these days without seeing multiple articles on devaluation levels of certain sectors in commercial, specifically office space. There was one study, this is a nationwide study, that showed or concluded that since the pandemic, nationwide there's been a decrease in valuation in office space in excess of $800 billion, 26% decline since the pandemic, projecting it for that decline to increase to 42% by 2030. More locally, some business experts in the city claim that they've already seen devaluations since 2019 in excess of 50%. And those are some of the older, less amenitized office space, but it's even in excess of that. So unfortunately, there's no real signs of any of that changing anytime soon. Now for the politically ugly. Let me define my terms real fast. When I say politically ugly, I'm not saying I agree, I'm not saying I disagree. I'm not allowed to have an opinion. I'm in private practice. So these are just developments that are going to come under criticism by somebody, somewhere along the time. I can pretty much guarantee that. And I had a lot to pick from. This month, I chose to come to you with two. The first is, you recall that since 2019, since December rather, when our governor announced her budget proposal, she proposed the housing compact to foster the development of multifamily homes throughout the state. Didn't gain traction in the legislature. So unfortunately, she didn't get any of those housing bills passed. Fast forward to a week ago, today. She took matters into her own hands and signed off on a slew of executive orders, to accomplish some goals that she couldn't get accomplished in the legislature. Just to highlight a couple of them, she has now instituted this pro-housing community program, which dictates that all state agencies that have access to quote-unquote discretionary funds use them to reward certified localities for developing multifamily housing. So there's over $650 million there that she's looking to dole out of discretionary funds. There's a new housing new portal called the Housing Data Dashboard, which she's making public, and she's also mandating all state agencies that have real estate under their ownership and control, which is a whole other conversation, to determine whether or not any of the properties that are under their ownership and control are suitable for repurposing to multifamily. And then she's also instituting pilot programs in lieu of the expired 421 tax exemptions. Now I'll leave you with one huge development. 3 weeks ago, New York State Supreme Court, 6th District, which is up in Cortland County, had the opportunity to rule on the human rights law. What happened was our Attorney General brought suit against a developer and a landowner that admittedly refused to rent a Section 8. Now, you'll recall that the human rights law requires all landlords to accept Section 8. You cannot discriminate. That's a lawful source of income. Well, this landlord did, and our Attorney General brought suit looking for restitution, punitive damages, the works. The landlord had a really unique argument, and I give their counsel kudos for this argument. The landlord argued that, well, the human rights law mandates that I have to accept Section 8, I have to participate in it. In order for me to participate in it, I am also required to sign off on those HAP contracts, the Housing Assistance Program contracts. Baked into those contracts are two things: my consent to unannounced inspections of the properties, and my consent to unannounced inspections of my business books and records. That's a violation of my constitutional rights. That violates the Fourth Amendment. That's a warrantless search and seizure of both my property, intellectual and real. Therefore, it's unconstitutional. The court bought the argument. They agreed. So as of today, we have a court, now, it's the lower court in the state, but we have a court precedent that states this human rights law is unconstitutional. Now, before any of us go out and advise our landlords, you can refuse Section 8, don't do that, because I very, very, very rarely give out guarantees, but the one guarantee that I have no problem giving is that this case will be appealed. So, we're going to keep our eye on this one for you. I'll report back, let you know future developments. It's not anything that's going to be resolved anytime soon, but this will strongly affect those multifamily landlords. If anyone has any questions, we'll let further discussion. Andrew, go ahead.
On this topic, we've seen a lot of multifamily borrowers who are going more towards the, whatever you call it, subsidized rent payments from the city, state, federal, whatever level it is, because they've all learned the lesson of the rent moratoriums of the pandemic, when the government said, you don't have to pay your rent.
Yeah, well, their business model is that, 60% of something is better than 100% of nothing.
Right. So they'd rather get, and they know the first of the month, the city pays the rent for the most part, whatever it is. So on the first of the month, they got 8 units, 10 units. There's 10 checks sitting in their mailbox that Monday morning, as opposed to chasing down tenants.
Where is the gentleman that was sitting right next to you? Where'd he go? Oh, he'll tell you the same exact thing. He manages properties. He has some landlords that they only want such. It's, not your most common landlord, but they are out there. That's their business model.
It seems like the mentality has changed with all these tenants.
No, there hasn't been a big shift in that. There's always been some element there.
Right.
I haven't seen any.
I'm saying,
people
as a lender,
running-
we've seen less of it
Maybe.
than recently. Well, as all these new buildings are coming online, they're going right to those programs.
So for my clients, in my private practice, that I'm seeing clients trying to unload multifamily, and they want to reposition it, either industrial or medical or something like that. That's what I'm saying,
Right.
but I'm not a lender, so. Any other questions? Any other questions you want to take offline? My number is 631-390-0010. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.